All right, my friends, excellent news in the Warcraft real-time strategy universe. We have Warcraft 3 Reforged Patch 2.0.3, and it has an excellent update that I'm very happy about. I recently did a video about how Blizzard had implemented these webm files of the classic backgrounds. Well, we are now back to the original model files. Look at that. The Frozen Throne stands beautifully before us. We can flip through. Here's the Reforged. These are still webms, the original Warcraft 3 Reforged backgrounds. But there's the Reign of Chaos background. The Infernals are properly falling now, coming down and crashing in all their glory. And then, of course, there's the wonderful The Frozen Throne background that we all had for so long. Let's go ahead and take a look at the single-player campaigns, where we also have an update. It's still the old pictures, but if we go in, you'll see there's the intro animation coming down on our Orc Peon, bravely standing in Kalimdor, funnily enough, even though the prologue is not in Kalimdor, but, you know, it is what it is. Holding his torch, all the lighting is back to how it should be. And it is a properly looping animation. And this is the case for all of the campaigns here. Like, look, we even go through the original tunnel to our Lich standing before a ziggurat in the frozen wastes of Northrend. We can take a look at, you know, the invasion of Kalimdor that we just played. We have our nice little intro. You see the awesome wyverns flying in front of the sun back there. All very cool stuff. So those are some of the more cosmetic updates, but this patch has a lot of other good stuff in it as well. Let's go ahead and dig through the patch notes just a little bit. So here we are with the patch notes. We have game servers, custom lobbies have some updates here. We'll take a look at a couple of things. Players with classic keys were having some licensing problems. I did see some comments on that on both the Hive Workshop and X. Glad to see that they've been taking a look at that. There's also a countdown timer in the UI for construction and training. This is actually huge, especially for the competitive side of Warcraft 3. Speaking of the competitive side of Warcraft 3, the Back to Warcraft team is going to be happy about this. Control-C now camera tracks a selected unit, so that's great for if you're, you know, an observer or watching a replay, you can track a unit. I suppose that'd be good in some situations while playing a game as well. I'm going to have to commentate some Warcraft 3 shortly here, so we'll take a look at that. Oh yeah, the triggers would not be saved correctly. This was actually a big one. So if you saved a game and then loaded it, you know, especially I guess the primary situation of this is in the Warcraft 3 campaign, you'd come back in and the AI wouldn't be behaving properly, or some campaign conditions could no longer be met because the triggers were all messed up. But that actually has been fixed on new saves only, so old saves might still have that issue. I'm not sure about that one there. Looks like they've optimized the AI, and they are asking for players to watch and report for unexpected behavior changes. This is in how AI players are placing their structures that they're building. So keep your eyes open. The Blizzard RTS team is listening. And then some good optimization on the visuals. So, of course, the biggest visual one replaced the classic main menu and campaign.webm backgrounds with .mdl renders. So that is the, you know, original files are now actually being rendered directly in the game. Really love that update. A couple other ones I saw a couple of comments on the Hive Workshop are custom unit portraits weren't correctly loading for whatever reason. Also some transparency issues, so glad to see all these updates here. Audio, this is a big one that I personally ran into. The map music would sometimes continue playing at the end of a map or during a cinematic. A couple of the cinematics during my playthrough, I had to actually clip it in, splice it from the .avi file of the cinematic after the fact, just because it didn't load properly. So it's nice to see that that's going to be updated there. Another cool thing for those of us that like messing around in the world editor, I've been doing that more myself lately. Custom campaigns may now use MDL files for mission select backgrounds. So that means we are able to make our own custom 3D backgrounds, just like the old ones, and add them into our custom campaigns. Also, a huge increase to the doodad limit. 30,000 was the old limit. It's now 130,000. So this is huge for custom maps. There was that doodad limit in there. If you added too many trees or even particle effects, crates, you name it, it could break the map. There were a couple of third-party workarounds, I believe, that could help with that. Blizzard is advising us to use caution. I'm guessing that's just for lag and other things that might happen. They've also increased the draw distance in the world editor. So the default draw distance in Warcraft 3 maximum is 10,000 units of Warcraft 3 vision. I don't know what that means exactly. I guess it's probably the same as the vision range of a unit. 10,000 is the typical draw distance. It is actually increased substantially. I was taking a look at it. However, it does see the maximum for actual cameras, like a cinematic camera, remains 10,000. So Blizzard, if it's at all possible with Warcraft 3 Reforged engine, if you could maybe increase the draw distance as well, I think that'd be quite nice, especially for some of the cinematic projects that we might be working on. There's also a number of things in here with some updated abilities that are adding in. For example, glaives from the Huntress have been updated, and this is where this new added ability prevents bouncing missile attacks from bouncing to and from structures, and within the world editor we'll be able to modify what unit type will stop the bounces. We also have another ability for the new version of Animate Dead that allows units to carry over their abilities, so that's quite nice. Hotkeys, this is huge as well. I really like this. So hotkeys, in original Warcraft 3, the hotkeys were set. With Reforged, they were kind enough to add grid hotkeys, but there's a lot more customization now available. They've also increased the amount of bindable keys and add a lot of quality of life features to custom hotkeys, which I think will be a big benefit, especially for those newcomers that might be coming to Warcraft 3, or just those that are looking to update their game. I know I personally have made the switch to grid in the past couple of years or so. I do that in both StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3 now, so if you like to play grid, I personally highly recommend it, as opposed to having to hop across the keyboard to hit P for peasant. Everything's conveniently where your hand is typically resting on the left side of the keyboard. Or I suppose you could, if you're left-handed, you could flip it and have everything be on the right side of the keyboard. The world is your oyster with the custom hotkeys that are in Warcraft 3. A good number of updates in balance as well. I'm not going to go into these quite as much because there's others who will be able to discuss this in much better depth than I could. I personally recommend the Back to Warcraft channel for that. Grubby also typically has a lot of great insights, but one that's probably the biggest one in this list really is piercing damage against heavy armor decreased from 100% to 90%. So heavy armor is actually going to be blocking more of piercing damage, which the way that the different damage and armor types interact with each other is really a big part of how Warcraft 3 is balanced. So it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts things moving forward. And then we do have a couple of bug fixes. I know the newly added Orb of Slow was causing some issues with custom maps because it changed. I think humans had the Orb of Fire before, and now it's the Orb of Slow, and it kind of messed up some custom maps. So one thing that I am curious about that I'm not quite sure of after my first couple read-throughs of these patch notes is if that will be or has been fixed. So if someone knows, go ahead and comment that. Oh yeah, this Brewmaster Breath of Fire, I'm just randomly reading this here, is pretty cool. It's going to better match up with the visuals and do more damage in that smaller area. But anyways, these are the basics of the new Warcraft 3 Reforged Patch 2.0.3. So I'm very excited about this. This is the third big patch since 2.0 that we got back at the time of the Warcraft 30th anniversary. And I'm really glad to see the Blizzard RTS team continue to upkeep Warcraft 3 Reforged. Hopefully we get a couple more updates for Warcraft 2 and my favorite, Warcraft 1 Remastered. So thank you all for joining in on this video. I'm Mick, this is MickCraft. Hope this has been beneficial to you. Hopefully it encourages some to jump back in and play around with some of these updates, or even just enjoy the beauty of the return of the campaign screens. Thank you all so much. Please join in your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you in my next mission.